I'm going to read a little bit from Fieldbook of Western Wildflowers, which is from 1915. I think I read this part in the last video. So I think I left off here where it says avalanche lily. Just move this, which I guess is here in this picture. So avalanche lily or dogtooth violet, white summer northwest. An exquisite kind, particularly graceful in form, with from 1 to 9 pure white flowers, nearly 3 inches across, each petal prettily ornamented at the base with some orange-colored markings arranged in a symmetrical scalloped pattern. The anthers are orange-yellow and pistol white. The buds are pinkish and the leaves are very bright green and not mottled. This is very common around Mount Rainier. The second one is glacier lily or dogtooth violet, yellow summer northwest. A lovely flower much like E. grandiflorum, but the anthers are white or pale yellow. Around Mount Rainier, these beautiful plants often grow in large patches at the edge of the snow, alongside of the avalanche lily, E. montanum, but the two kinds do not seem to mingle. Easter bells, dogtooth violet, yellow spring, summer, northwest and Utah. One of the loveliest of the charming group, growing in rich northern woods, the delicately scented flowers from 1 to 6 on a stalk are about 2 inches across, clear yellow shading to white at the base, with purplish red anthers turning brown. A patch of these flowers bordering the edge of a glacier as if planted in a garden. So it's the avalanche lily and the glacier lily. Garden bed is a sight never to be forgotten. Pushing their bright leaves right through the snow, they gaily swing their golden censers in the face of winter and seem the very incarnation of spring. There are several similar kinds in Utah. In the Utah canyons, these flowers in early spring are a wonderful sight, covering the wooded slopes with sheets of gold, and they seem to me to be the largest and handsomest of their clan, growing at an altitude of 6,000 to 11,500 feet, and blooming from March to July, according to height. Easter bells is a Utah name. Desert lily, white, spring, California and Arizona. Is that this one? On the side. Desert lily. This is the only one of its kind, a wonderfully beautiful desert plant, much like an Easter lily. The stout, pale, bluish stem, from 6 inches to 2 feet tall, has a delicate bloom and springs from a graceful cluster of narrow leaves, which are 1.5 feet long, spreading widely, but not lying quite flat on the ground. They are pale bluish green, with a narrow crinkled white border and folded lengthwise. The buds are bluish, and the lovely flowers are about 3 inches long and pure white, delicately striped with pale green and blue on the outside, with yellow anthers and a white stigma, and with a papery bract at the base of each pedicel. The flowers are slightly fragrant and become papery and curiously transparent as they wither. In dry seasons, these plants do not bloom at all, but the slightest moisture will cause them to send up a stout stem, and crown it with exquisite blossoms, which look extraordinarily out of place in the arid desert sand around Yuma and what is FT? Mojave. The bulb is eaten by the Indians. That's the desert lily. Lilies, the lord of gardens, are perhaps the most beautiful and popular flowers everywhere, and there are some wonderful ones in the West. They have tall, smooth, leafy stems springing from scaly bulbs, large, showy flowers, solitary or in terminal clusters, smooth, netted veined leaves, often in whorls, and leaf-like bracts. The flower cup is funnel-formed or bell-shaped and has 6 equal spreading divisions, with a honey-bearing groove at the base of each. The stamens, with long anthers, swinging from the tips of long filaments, a long pistil with 3-lobed stigma, and the capsule oblong, with 2 rows of flat seeds in each of its cells. There are no true lilies in Utah. This one says small tiger lily. On the side here. A small tiger lily, orange-red, summer, California, and Oregon. These tall plants carry a brilliant crown of small lilies, growing like jewels in the dark, moist woods they love. The stem is from 1.5 to 6 feet high, covered with a slight down that rubs off and springs from a small bulb with short, thick scales. The long, pointed, rich green leaves are in whorls of 5 or 6 below, more scattered toward the top of the stalk. The flowers are rather more than an inch long, yellow at the base of the petals, shading through orange to vermilion at the tips, and dotted with crimson in the throat. Usually there are 6 to 7 in a cluster, but they have been found with many more in favorable situations, and single plants in Yosemite have been seen with as many as 30 blossoms. The capsule is roundish and less than an inch long. These little lilies are among the most attractive of their kind, and grow somewhat freely in the high Sierras to an altitude of 7,000 feet and as far north as Oregon. Washington lily, Shasta lily, white, summer, California and Oregon, which is over here on the side. In the Sierras, at an altitude of from 3 to over 7,000 feet, and as far north as the Columbia River, we may be fortunate enough to find this glorious lily, growing in the forest in moderate shade and protected by the chaparral. It is not rare, but nowhere very abundant. I shall never forget finding a group of 3 or 4 growing near a huge fallen tree in the woods at Winona, near Yosemite, where it is very fine. Their raiment is even more white and glistering than the cultivated Easter lilies. The smooth, stout, purplish stem is from 2 to 5 feet high, adorned all the way up with successive whorls of handsome dark green leaves, 3 or 4 inches long, thin in texture, with rippling margins, and shining as if they had been varnished. There are from 2 to 20 blossoms of shining white, each one from 3 to 4 inches long, and as much across. The petals are cleft to the base, spreading wide apart when the flower is fully open, sometimes finely dotted with purple, and becoming purplish and fading. The anthers are yellow and the pistil green, and the bulb is large with thin scales. The scent is delicious, having a whiff of spicy carnation added to the usual lily fragrance. This is never found in the Coast Range and is the only pure white American lily. Shasta lily is a variety with a small bulb. L. Perry, the lemon lily of Southern California and Arizona, is similar in the form of its flowers, which are yellow and clear yellow, dotted lightly with deeper yellow. It grows in shady, moist spots in cool canyons and is very beautiful. Leopard lily, which is this one. And then the side has tiger lily. Leopard lily. Orange, summer, Washington, Oregon, and California. A magnificent plant from 3 to 6 feet tall, with bright green leaves, thin in texture, smooth but not shiny, and mostly in whorls. The stem is crowned by a splendid cluster of flowers, usually about half a dozen together, but sometimes as many as 30 on one stalk. They measure 3 or 4 inches across and are pale orange outside and deep orange inside, spotted with maroon, often blotched with orange-yellow in the throat and tipped with scarlet. The anthers are purplish, changing to reddish-brown, and the pistil is bright green. These plants often grow in large companies in moist spots in the mountains and are unrivaled in decorative beauty and brilliancy of coloring. Tiger lily. Orange, summer, Washington, and Oregon. A good deal like the last, but not so large. The petals are more turned back, and they are orange color all over, dotted with dark red, and the anthers are pale orange color, ripening to golden brown. This is common in the Hood River Valley. Ruby lily, or chaparral lily, white, pink, summer, California and Oregon. A glorious plant from 2 to 5 feet tall, with leaves mostly in whorls, with rippled edges. The stem bears a magnificent cluster of blossoms, most wonderful in coloring, for the buds and young flowers are white, dotted with purple inside, with yellow anthers and a pale green pistil. But they gradually change to pink and deepen to ruby purple as they fade, and the anthers and pistil also darken in color. The effect of the whole cluster is therefore white at the top, shading through pink to almost crimson below. The flowers are even more deliciously fragrant than the Washington lily, which they resemble, except that they are not quite so large as the latter, and stand more erect, and the petals are not so spreading. This usually grows among chaparral in the Coast Ranges. Our Lord's Candle, Yucca whipple, a very small part of cluster. There are several kinds of yucca, natives of North and Central America, large plants with dagger-like leaves, usually with long thread-like fibers along the margins, flowers with bracts, nodding in a terminal cluster, somewhat bell-shaped with 6 thickish white divisions, stamens short, with thickened filaments and small anthers, ovary with 3 united stigmas, capsule containing many flat black seeds. The flowers are pollinated by a little white moth, which lays its eggs in the ovary, but previously gathers pollen from many flowers and pushes it against the stigma after the eggs have been laid. Our Lord's Candle, Spanish bayonet, white, spring, summer, California and Arizona. A noble plant with no trunk, but sending up a magnificent shaft of flowers from 5 to 15 feet tall, springing from a huge symmetrical bunch of dagger-like bluish-green leaves. The cluster is composed of hundreds of waxy, cream-colored blossoms, sometimes tinged with purple, 2 inches across, crowded so closely together along the upper part of the stalk that the effect is a great solid mass of bloom, 3 feet tall. No, 3 feet long. The white filaments are swollen, tipped with pale yellow anthers. The pistil cream color with green stigmas. The large white bracts are stiff and coarse, something like parchment, folded back, so that the pinkish stalk is ornamented with a series of white triangles, symmetrically arranged. A hillside covered with hundreds of these magnificent spires of bloom, towering above the chaparral, is a wonderful sight. After they have blossomed, the tall white stalks remain standing for some time, so that the hills look as if they had been planted with numbers of white wands. The genus Cleistoica resembles yucca, but divisions of the flower are very thick and there is no style. Joshua tree, tree yucca, greenish white, spring, summer, California, Arizona, Utah. A tree grotesque and forbidding in aspect, but with a weird sort of beauty, looming black against the pale desert landscape, with a great thick rough trunk, 15 to 30 feet high, and a few thick contorted branches, stretching out like a giant's arm and pointing ominously across the sandy waste. The branches. There are 3 kinds of I skipped a page, sorry. The branches are thatched with shaggy husks of dead leaves, and from their tips they thrust out a great bunch of dagger-like leaves and a big ponderous cluster of pallid greenish flowers or heavy yellowish fruits. The coarse flowers are about 2 inches across, with a clammy smell like toadstools, and the bracts are dead white. This grows in the Mojave Desert and is at its best around Hesperia, where one might see the most fantastic forest that is possible to imagine. Elsewhere, it is smaller and more like other yuccas in shape. It was called Joshua tree by the early settlers. It is said because they fancied that its branches pointed towards the promised land. The fruits are relished by the Indians, who utilize the fibers from the leaves for weaving baskets, ropes, hats, horse blankets, etc., and make a pulp from the stems used for soap. The one next to it says wake robin. There are several kinds of trillium of North America and Asia, with tuberous rootstocks, 3 netted veined leaves in a whorl at the top of the stem, a single flower with 3 green sepals, 3 petals, 6 short stamens, and 3 styles, capsule berry-like and reddish, containing many seeds. The Latin name means triple. Wake robin, birth root, white, spring and summer, northwest. A charming plant, about a foot tall, with a single beautiful blossom, set off to perfection by its large, rich green leaves. The flower is 2 or 3 inches across, with lovely white petals, which gradually change to deep pink. It is a pleasure to find a company of these attractive plants in the heart of the forest, where their pure blossoms gleam in the cool shade along some mountain brook. They resemble the eastern large-flowered trillium and grow in the coast ranges. So, I think I'll stop there for now, and I'll continue reading in another video. Oh, sorry. So that was Field Book of Western Wildflowers by Margaret Armstrong. Thank you for watching my videos, and hope it helped you fall asleep a little bit. Yeah.